Hello everyone and welcome to the Community Shares webinar. My name is Bertie Hertage and I'm a coach here at Crowdfunder UK. And today we're going to be talking about crowdfunding and for your community share issue. We're very fortunate to be joined by two guests today. On the one side we've got Dave Boyle, who's the director of the Community Shares company. Hello Dave.
Hi there Bertie. Hi everybody.
Hello, and hello, Rich, as well. Rich Dawes ran a successful community shares offer for Komedia in Bath. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hello there.
So we're just going to kick off and crack right into it because we don't have a lot of time, and we want to cover the kind of key highlights behind what's involved in a community shares offer. How does crowdfunding feature in that? Learning a bit about Rich's previous experience running his project for Komedia, and the actual kind of bare bones of how you set your project up and what that looks like on the website, and of course the different match funding opportunities that we have available. So a little bit about Crowdfunder. We are the #1 rewards-based crowdfunding website in the UK. And to date, we've raised over £50 million for the projects that are fundraising on our website. And what that looks like is roughly about 200 projects added every single day. So it's a very busy industry, and from a fundraising perspective, it's a very current form of raising finance. So everyone, I'm sure, watching this today will be familiar with the general concept. But crowdfunding is essentially raising a particular amount of finance from a large group of people via relatively small amounts. And there are, of course, different types, and some of which we focus on and deal with, which are on the left, and some of which we don't, which are on the right. So we do deal in donations, so people pledging money for nothing in return. We do deal in rewards, so people pledging money in return for a specific reward, and community shares. So different communities enable to purchase a share on a local asset, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We don't deal with money lending or the sale of a percentage of business online. So Dave, it would be great to have a bit of an introduction about the concept of community shares and the role that the Community Shares company plays in that.
Okay, thanks, Bertie. I'm going to keep this relatively brief because I'm not sure how many of the people participating on the webinar, where they are in their journey to do a community share issue. So I don't want to get too detailed in case I'm teaching Granny to suck eggs. But in general, community shares are a form of crowdfunding for social sector enterprises where the project is going to make a real difference to the community of interest you're looking to raise the funds from. It's like crowdfunding in that it's bringing in a lot of money from a lot of people. The big difference really is that because you're selling a stake in the enterprise, these people who become your shareholders are going to own the society in which you undertake the share issue, and they're going to be able to choose the board of directors and have a say. And because you might be offering a financial return, it's incumbent upon groups to have thought through all of the whys and wherefores, especially around the money. How much money are you going to make with the capital you're going to get invested, and does that enable people to get a return, some interest, or to take their money out at some point in the future? So it's a little bit more involved, but the reward for that involvement is that community shares on average, certainly on Crowdfunder, get an average of around £600 investment per person, as opposed to around £50, which is the average for normal crowdfunding rewards or donation based. So a community share offer is a really lucrative way for people who want to make a difference in their community by creating a community-owned business to raise the capital they need to kickstart it, or maybe to buy an asset such as a pub or a village hall or a community centre and do something with it which is more interesting than what it's currently being used for. the key things you need for a community share issue is to have a legal entity which is able to issue community shares, which for the purposes of this webinar, it's a cooperative society, or far more common, a community benefit society. I'm not going to go into any more detail about that because we've not really got the time, but the community shares company works with groups at all stages of the process, from a couple of people having a mad idea after a night in the pub and giving me a call, through to organisations looking to raise several £1 million and helping them get their financial projections sorted, their business plan in the right format, and getting the offer document right. We also are the associates to Crowdfunder, and we provide sort of assurance support to them. So when people come to Crowdfunder who've been working with another developer or have been doing it on their own, Crowdfunder asks the community shares company to give a once over to the share issue to check that it's all present and correct, that you're legally able to issue community shares, and to be honest, that the share offer looks like a reasonably good one. We're not there to sort of say, yes, this is brilliant, you should invest in it, you're bound to make money. But what we do say is that we think it's a reasonable share offer, as opposed to something somebody's come up with on the back of a fag packet, and really it's got no business being put in front of the public to say, hey, everybody, do you want to become owners of our thing? We need to make sure that the thing and the business plan behind it is reasonably well thought through, and it's got a reasonable chance of success.
I'm going to cut across, Bertie, actually, because we can't hear you at the moment. So sorry about that.
Sorry, thank you. So we are going to talk to Rich a bit about his experience doing community shares offer for Komedia Bath. So it would be great to hear a bit more about the organisation and why it is you decided to go for it.
Okay, well, no, thanks for having us on the session today. And the idea behind the community share offer in Bath was that we had a venue that we'd opened in 2008. It spawned from a successful enterprise that had been running since 1994 in Brighton, became a very culturally relevant and commercially viable mid-scale venue in Brighton. And we thought it would be relatively simple to be able to transplant that model into another city. There was a couple of factors that we hadn't accounted for, is that we opened just before the recession. So we opened the venue and battled through the recession, totally under our own steam financially. So it's backed by private shareholders, but ostensibly run as a social venture. So the backing for the project was from Triodos, the Dutch bank who only back social ventures. And when we came out of the recession, we got the business into a model that was hitting lots of the metrics that we wanted, lots of the metrics that Triodos wanted, which were cultural relevance, offering a very wide range of entertainment that hit many groups, many different audiences, and ostensibly providing the mid-scale venue that the Bath needs, but every city needs. But what we did over 5 years is we tried to tweak that model to sustain, to create positive cash flow, and we found it difficult. So the reason that when we were, for about the 5th time, trying to tweak the model to work in a way that was self-sustaining, we worked out a little bit of alchemy, that if we managed to engage the people, the very people we were running the venue for, who we were marketing the venue at, if we then ask those people to become involved in the business and to become members and to share the responsibility, then the likelihood of us, one, raising the capital we needed to recapitalize the business, and two, create the ongoing trade that will make the business self-sustaining, you could probably crack all of those things in one fell swoop and take the weight of the business off our own shoulders and turn it into more of a, let's everybody share this and make it enjoyable. And the process, it was a long process. It was over a year ago that we started, and we finished the campaign in December, and we're still tying up the very back end of the compliance for the FCA. But the magic that's worked within the city is that we've kickstarted the model. It has changed the metric of our business, and the relevance of what we do to the city is now exactly what we wanted it to be.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rich. It's really, really useful to have a previous project owner on the webinar today. And if you do have any kind of questions that you would like answered throughout, then do get in touch with us at support@crowdfunder.co.uk. Alternatively, you can kind of engage with the chat that is on the YouTube clip at the moment. So we're going to talk a bit about Crowdfunder, specifically in crowdfunding, and the practicalities of community shares. So to start with, how does crowdfunding kind of really work? A lot of people kind of have the idea that crowdfunding is about having a really, really nice idea and then putting it on the internet and expecting it to get funded. That would be great, but sadly, that's not how it works. So it is very much a platform for credible and realistic ideas. And how that works exactly is that you create a page on our website, and that details kind of who you are, what it is you're trying to do, and how it's going to happen. So your story. You will then receive a link, a URL for this page, and you will be marketing that page out to all of your professional contacts, your entire network, to raise the particular amount of finance that you need. And why is it that people decide to crowdfund? It is very much more than just the money that you raise. As I think you can see from an example like Komedia, with over 300 investors, that is a solid validation that there's a real kind of demand for what they do in the area, that there's a really good community of people who are behind the idea and want it to progress and to be part of it. And I'm sure Rich can attest to this as well, that essentially the campaign that you're involved in is one large marketing exercise. So throughout that process, you'll be reaching out to all of the different groups that might share an interest in your project, and therefore kind of shouting about it the loudest and proudest you've done about anything in your life. And then what happens there is that you'll build new bridges, start new relationships, and get more supporters. And by its nature, those people who are investing in your idea are very much advocates for what you do and are going to be with it and follow you into the future and for the long haul. And if that isn't enough, we've also got extra funding, which we're going to talk about a little later. But Crowdfunder works with lots of different corporations and councils in the UK who have specific funds available for different projects around the country. So moving on to the community share angle, prior to kind of starting your crowdfunding campaign, Dave, can you tell us a bit about the practicalities of getting set up?
And we're over to Dave, aren't we, on this one?
Yes. Dave, are you there? You might need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. So yeah, the big practicality with the community share issue with Crowdfunder, I mean, there's loads of work which you need to have done behind the scenes in your community before you even approach Crowdfunder, before you've even written your offer document, about engaging with your crowd to to get them warmed up. If you imagine a community share offer is like a very big stock pot of water, full of litres and litres of water. You put it on the hob and you put it on full blast, and it will be burning for ages, and it won't even feel like it's warming up, but it is, but it's almost imperceptible. And then very quickly it starts to bubble, and that bubbling is what you need by the time you launch your share offer on Crowdfunder. But a lot of the work warming the water up, as it were, is stuff you do in your communities, and is absolutely central and essential to make it a success. Just to touch on what Bertie said, a lot of people sometimes think, hey, it's a new thing, we'll put it on a website and loads of people will jump on it and invest. That's if you've done all the warming up. If you've not done that, then it'll basically be, it'll disappear without trace, because there's nobody behind it. And you get out from crowdfunding and community shares what you put in. And, you know, there is no magic bullet around the fact that you're going to have to do quite a lot of work. In practical terms, though, what you need to get on the platform is we need to see your society rules to check that you're legally able as a society to issue community shares. You probably will be, because you've probably been working with a developer who's been holding your hand through this process and giving you lots of pointers, but we need to just check that. We also need to check the business plan and the financial projections. Again, you know, are you making ridiculous statements about how successful your business is going to be, which just don't really stand up to any scrutiny? If it's full of wishful thinking, left, right and centre, and ultimately the business plan is let's hope for a following wind and click our heels together 3 times, then, you know, we'll probably say, hang on a minute, guys, is that really, are you ready? We also need a share offer document. If you've got a share offer document, some groups have decided to run their share offers completely on the Crowdfunder platform. And so what's traditionally called the share offer document, which sort of details who you are, what you're doing, what you're going to use the money to do, and the basic terms and conditions. You could do that on the Crowdfunder page, which we'll come on to in a bit, about preparing your page. And then the sooner you can get that to Crowdfunder for us to have a look at, the better it is. There's been some groups who've sort of arrived and they've said, we want to launch our share issue tomorrow, can you give us the all clear, because we've told everybody it's going to be on Crowdfunder, but we forgot to get round to getting this stuff to you. That's really problematic, because it relies on us being able to drop everything to look at the document, and that takes some time. So the sooner you can get those documents to us, the better. I should also say, if you've got a community share standard mark, which many share offers these days have, about 80%, then that process of checking that everything's present and correct is extremely quick. We're just mainly checking that the standard mark has been awarded rather than anything else. The other couple of things to just bear in mind is to think about how long you're going to have your share offer open for. When you go into the Crowdfunder platform and create your page, you'll be given options to select between 1 and 8 weeks for a campaign. And many share offers want a little bit more time than that, not too much more time, but they do want the ability to have it open for longer. So that needs to be essentially sort of, that's not something you can choose through your Crowdfunder page. And so you have to let Crowdfunder know what your closing date for the share offer is, in order that it can be essentially hand coded manually by the Crowdfunder team. The same thing applies to the other big thing which affects community share offers. With Crowdfunder's general rewards and donations based projects, when the campaign launches, you'll say we need to raise X amount of money by Y date, and if you do, the campaign's a success. And at that moment, when you hit your target and the campaign closes, the money starts to be drawn down and hits your bank account. For many community share offers, though, the raising of the money and crystallizing the cash is the first step. You might be in negotiations to buy a pub, for example, and you don't want to draw down the money and incur the fees which Crowdfunder charge, only to then have to give that money back to everybody, less those fees. So often groups want to hold the money in the platform using the Stripe payment engine and just wait, you know, then they can approach a vendor and say, look, we've proved it, we've got £300,000, can we do a deal to buy the pub? And until they've got a yes to that question, they don't want to draw the money down. So if that affects you and you do want to have a delay between when you draw the money down and have that essentially done manually, again, you need to let Crowdfunder know as soon as possible, because once the page has started, once somebody pledges, they'll start to get emails from the site automatically which say, brilliant, it's due to close on this date, we'll be in touch and we'll be drawing the money down. And so again, if those need to be changed specifically to meet what you want from your community share offer, then basically the sooner you can let Crowdfunder know, the better. So we don't end up sending misleading or sort of confusing information rather to the people who've backed your project and want to invest. But once you've got all of those documents, then you're on to how to build, a really good looking and exciting page, which I think is the next, Bertie's going to touch on now.
Brilliant, thank you, Dave. Yes, I think just to reconfirm that, really, we're here. We've got a support team available, so we're very happy to advise. The earlier you get in touch, the more we can help. So we're going to look a bit more about the preparation stage before we touch on the practicalities of putting the page together. As Dave touched on earlier, one of the most essential ingredient to running an effective campaign is having an audience, and that requires a solid amount of work prior to going live to have a really good idea about who you're approaching and who you're going to send that link out to. So I think that's a good question for you, Rich. Can you tell us a bit about how you identified your audience of investors?
Yeah, sure. We're lucky in so much as we have been an existing business with customers since 2008, so we had a very, very large database. But of course, that database is broken down into customers who come to different events, so totally different demographics. Some people think we're a music venue, other people think Komedia Bath is a nightclub, other people think it's a cafe. So we managed to sort of break down those audiences, and there are other key parts of the city though and the region that we needed to know were on board with what we were trying to do. So before we went out to our audiences, we'd canvassed the opinion of the cultural groups, the city council, the business groups within Bath. We'd canvass the opinion of affinity organisations. This is the area that surprised me the most and was the most sort of liberating, was the other organisations that have done similar things. And I suppose Bath is great because it's got the City Football Club, it's got the Bell Inn, it's got those precedents. But there will be community sort of run organisations close to anyone within the country. So if anyone's thinking of this, I'd suggest you go out and talk to people who've done similar things and get their advocacy, because they've got networks of people who are already converts to this. And what we were trying to do within our audiences was hit many people, many of whom had never heard of community ownership. So it's very confusing to people. So we had to put different messages out to those different audiences as well. And but the starting point was to start with the city and the relevance that the venue had to the city, and make sure that we'd got the buy-in of the city. And of course, before that, I had to take the conversation outside of the shareholders to the management team of the venue, then to the staff of the venue, and then spread that word out. And it's all checks and balances as well, because when we first went out to the customers, we didn't go to our 40,000 strong database and say, hey, this is what we're planning to do. We chose a sample of regular customers who we knew came to a variety of events and said, we're thinking of doing this. If we did, would you be interested? And that probably was the most exciting part of the whole process. Went out to, it might have been 50 or 100 or maybe even 20, but we got such a strong response from that group of people that it encouraged us that, yeah, okay, we think this is a chance of working. Funnily enough, they were the absolute advocates. They were our regulars, and convincing the 39,000th customer who'd only been once maybe on a stag do and lived in Newcastle proved a bit harder. But so there was nothing easy about the process. But yeah, starting talking to your audiences and your customers earlier is something I'd definitely advise.
Brilliant, thank you, Rich. Yes, there's a few things there that kind of I really resonate with in terms of kind of preparing your audience, testing your audience to get a sense if that is something that people are going to go for. So I think one of the key ingredients to a campaign like this is a good team. So not having everything on your own shoulders, but being able to kind of delegate and share some responsibility with others, because it does take up a lot of amounts of time and preparation. And one of the key exercises that you're going to need to do is a network map. And you can find these in the different guides that we make available via the website, crowdfunder.co.uk/guides. And there's a nice section on community shares there. But essentially, this exercise enables you to get a real sense of who lives within your world, and who you would like to reach out to during your campaign to get them to invest in the project. So you start kind of from your very, very core, and that's very true when it comes to the actual management of the campaign, is that you identify those closest to you first before going out to your wider audience. So that is kind of your core supporters, friends and family, to kind of get essentially a decent chunk or percentage located before you go live, to get a really good sense of where and who is investing. So this is a nice exercise to do with the team, and this is something that you can carry around with you throughout the campaign, and it will keep growing each time, but it's best to make it as exhaustive as possible, and then identify the groups that are going to invest, and what in particular your route to each of those groups will be. What's the best channel of communication? Are you going to spend time on the phone every day? Are you going to send different layers of emails to separate parts of your audience? And there are lots of different things to think about there. So when it comes to setting up a project on Crowdfunder, that really is the easy bit, and it's your opportunity to kind of get creative, and to paint a really interesting picture about what you're proposing. So you need to go to www.crowdfunder.co.uk, and on the homepage there is an option to start crowdfunding, and you'll have all of the guides, as we mentioned before, to help you in that journey. But it's very basic and will require kind of the essential information, like how much you're going to raise, the title you choose, and a few of your personal details. You also have the option to add in your social media at that point as well, which will then give us a sense of what kind of audience you've got already. So the important part is being able to tell your story in an effective way. So you'll have a project aim, which is a short and sharp, concise summary of what it is you hope to achieve. The type or category of project will be community shares. And within that process, you're able to add all the different facets necessary to tell that story. And the key elements to include and to get really, really good at saying, and when you're talking to people, are what it is you want to achieve, who you are, what's your credibility, and what do you do, and how exactly the funds that you'll raise will be used. And within that page, it's your opportunity to convey the importance of what's happening, to inspire and excite and educate people about the opportunity available. We do recommend that you use a video. This is a really nice opportunity to create a shareable asset, which essentially will reflect the information on your page, but will be short and digestible, and hopefully will progress through social media and via email to reach wider and wider audiences. So this shouldn't be longer than 2 to 3 minutes max. People's attention span on the internet is not long, so you're going to have to be snappy. It can be, depending on the size of the organization, very professionally done, or something that is shot quite simply on your iPhone. But it's important to get lots of different people into the shots to convey the community behind it, to show some interest and variety in what you do. The investment and rewards section is where you kind of detail it is what's on offer. And these are really kind of share offers don't have to have rewards. Many don't, in fact, but those that do help stretch investors, which can be particularly useful when there's a share issue which has set a low minimum for people to get involved, to enable maximum participation. But if it has a high target and it needs lots of people to stretch their bid to get higher pledges or investment in, then you can offer a real range of different price points that will appeal to different people. And it's a very simple procedure. It's part of what we call the ad project flow, and you can add rewards as you go throughout your campaign. But what I'd suggest that you do is visit the crowdfunding website and look at some examples of previous projects who have gone through the same process as you. Have a look at what they were offering and how that might work for your own project and how you might be able to replicate that. So, Rich, it would be great to hear from your perspective what you were able to offer as rewards and the investment opportunities and what proved to be successful.
Sure, yeah. It's funny you just actually mentioned what we did, because we were asking people to invest in the venue, in the business, to give it sustainability. So the overarching aim, the overarching reward is we're much more likely, you and us, much more likely to be owning a venue that's running in 20 years' time if you get involved. But of course, that's quite you're in for the long game. We then looked at what other rewards beyond. There's a 3% return given the business operates to budget for the investors. There's also the ability to apply for social investment tax relief. So it's advantageous to some taxpayers to invest in the business. Or in the society, should I say. But in terms of the nitty gritty of rewards, we did that. We went to the Crowdfunder page and we looked at what other rewards, what was best practice, what was going to be of value to the investors, and we've got another level of supporters, donators too, that wouldn't overwhelm us with custom that didn't create us any income, but had value to the investor. What we were looking for was a classic win-win. So something that brought them to the venue more often, enlightened them more of what we were doing, but also they could come for cheaper. We've got people now queuing up and taking their sort of benefits and coming along to our Saturday night comedy every week, and we've got the capacity to host them. They'll eat and drink with us, so we'll be creating more income, and they'll be getting free tickets that they would have had to pay £15 to £30 for previously. The likelihood is they're going to be coming more regularly as well. So there's the win-win side of it. The other element is that there is a threshold that we felt it was reasonable to ask people to invest in. It was £250, but below that we didn't want to cut off support and involvement in the venue. There are lots of people who we know wanted to be involved but didn't have that amount of money, and typically younger people actually. So we created a donators benefits package, so people put from a small amount of money in up to £250. They also benefit from similar rewards. They can come, they can get 10% discount on the drinks. They can they can benefit as well and feel the involvement, and that spread the net much wider as well. One of the things to say is that we could have solved one of the problems that the venue had, which was we wanted some capital investment. We could have solved that with shareholders, but that didn't do anything for the engagement, the relevance to the city, the everyone share the responsibility, and having a floor of investment lower than £250, that spread the net wider. So there's now more people with advocacy and involvement. People walk past the venue saying, I own that venue. Well, a little bit of it, and that's that's over 300 strong now. And if the floor had been higher, we would have had 20 or 30 investors. We could have come quite close to the investment target, but it wouldn't have had the relevance.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rich. I think that's summarize it very nicely, in fact, because what you have managed to do is make it available for everyone. So you had a lot of kind of big investors get involved with the higher figures, but also made it open to everyone. So you do build that crowd for you, and crowdfunding is an opportunity to reach out to people who don't know about you and to get them interested. And you can certainly do that by offering discounts and exclusive deals on tickets. So we are just going to talk about the setting of your target really now. This is a really, really important part of crowdfunding and essential really for a community shares offer, because you've got a really good idea of what you need to make it a functioning asset and to enable you to commit to the purchase. So that is something that you have to get right and to have a really good sense about before going into it. And I think the preparation, the best way to be prepared is to be able to identify those larger sources of funding to be able to get you there. So you've got quite a good idea already of who those larger investors are, starting those conversations early, and then the different opportunities there are to get other people on a wider scale to make up the rest. So in terms of preparation, I think we've covered quite a lot about identifying your audience, having the necessary documentation in place, getting in touch with Crowdfunder prior to going live, and the community shares company. Rich, is there anything from your perspective that you think would be necessary before going live with your campaign?
The most obvious thing is just to tee up. So you've warmed everyone up, as Dave said. You've got this massive pot, which of course we didn't feel getting warm at all at the outset, but we were doing all the work. And you need to tee up all your supporters so that if you're ready to go live, you need everyone to be lending their weight to it. And of course we all know from any type of campaign there are key people who help form people's opinions. So be that people in the press or people with the 5 million followers on Twitter, or just some element of crass celebrity. Whatever, we were quite happy to take whatever levels of support we could get. And equally, I have a network. You have a network, any individual has a network. So if people were on board, if our staff were on board, if our customers were on board, we were priming them to say, okay, well, when we go live, would you be happy to put your support behind this and put your name to this, and ask people that, just put it in front of them. You don't need to recommend it from a financial perspective. You can just say, this is what's happening, I'm supporting it, have a look. And so that start, and as Dave talked about the campaign, you've got two huge areas of activity. One is the start, and the other one's the end, and the middle bit is the bit where you hold your breath and keep things as active and as loud and as noisy as possible. You need a plan that you're not just saying the same thing every day. You need to be introducing elements to the story, something that's new, something that's newsworthy, something that's worth talking about, rather than the give us your money, give us your money. There's only so many times you can actually ask for that. We've got, you know, we were very lucky. We've got a venue with a lot of throughput of artists, and what we did with them is I went with my camera and talked to them, told them what we're doing, almost to a person. They thought it was a brilliant idea. It was the future of live entertainment venues in the country. Okay, great. Would you mind putting that on camera, and we'll just share it on the socials? And they did. And the video that anyone can look at on the Crowdfunder site now for our successful campaign, the first 2 minutes of that are the videos that we collected along the way. So that's not the video we started with. So yeah, I think you need in terms of preparation, you need every bit of sort of muscle you can muster to start the campaign, and then you need to be ready to be keeping things live throughout it, and then of course you have the culmination. But you know, you'll know where you're at as you're coming into the last week, the last 2 weeks of what's needed and what the likelihood is, and that's, you know, it's incredibly exciting sort of process, but also incredibly hard. It's probably one of the most challenging things I've done in business, and equally, when I say I, of course there's no I in team. The people who ran this the campaign for us were it was Eleanor at Komedia who came in for a 1-year maternity cover and actually did one of the greatest, you know, community share campaigns with Ellie, our marketing manager, and Adrian, and the rest of the team there. You know, whilst we were doing that, but we still had to run the business. So people like, you know, Lucy, our assistant manager, were running the business for us, and whilst we were focusing externally. So, but yes, I'd say you need every bit of momentum to start the campaign.
Brilliant, thank you, Rich. And I absolutely agree with everything you've said then. I think to get people involved and committed to the campaign and what you're trying to achieve, the best way is to get it in front of them early. And I think the more personal and direct you can be by asking for feedback and people's opinion, what you're doing is immediately bringing them in to your crowd, giving them a role to play. So one, you're getting their thoughts on what's realistic and what you can achieve in terms of who's going to support the project, but you're also getting them to take on the role of supporting it once it's live, because you can always kind of come back to them and say, oh, remember, we put this project together, you thought about these rewards, we're now live, how are you able to invest? So I think as personal and direct as you can be really across all your communications, and as Dave said, to make sure you've covered that middle tricky ground. So there's going to be a peak at the end and a peak of interest, certainly at the beginning, but in the middle, that's when you need to have lots of different activity bubbling away to maintain people's engagement and to make sure that they maintain their interest as well. So, Dave, can you tell us a bit about the funding process and how those are paid out after the go live date?
Yeah. So the thing which you'll need to make sure you're communicating to your potential investors is that Crowdfunder use the Stripe payment engine, which enables people to use credit or debit cards. That's overwhelmingly people's preference when they used to be offered a choice on Crowdfunder to do direct debits through Go Cardless or payment via Stripe, and it was astonishing. You know, you're talking like 96% people wanted to use their card. So Crowdfunder only offer the card payment, and what happens there is that when the investor looks at your page, thinks, yeah, I'm in, I want to invest, and they click to pledge to invest, the money's taken from their bank account using their credit or debit card, which they've plugged into the site, and the money sits with the Stripe payment engine until such time as the project is successful. If the project isn't successful, then basically the money is paid back to the person using the same card they've paid the funds in on, and there's no cost to anybody, and it will be about a week after the project is unsuccessfully closed. So that makes life a little easier if you're not successful. You don't have money sitting in your bank account, which you then have to transfer back through lots of bank transfers or check payments, all of which you're doing with a heavy heart because you've failed, but you have to do it. So it takes one thing, that's one big advantage of using that mechanism. If the share offer is successful, then basically at that point, the money would automatically be paid over to you, the society who's promoting the share offer. However, if, as we discussed earlier, that's not what you want to do because you've got other contingencies before you get to the stage where you need the money to be hitting your account, then that can be managed. The time scale, though, is that from the first, Stripe can only hold money for 6 months. So if you've got a share offer which is 3 months long, then realistically you've got about 2.5 months tops after the share offer closes, in which you've got some wriggle room before you decide whether to take the money and make everybody an investor and use the money as you see fit, or whether you want to say, I'm sorry, the deal fell through, we're going to have to abandon it, that's a big shame. If your share offer is only 1 month long, then obviously you've got a little bit longer to play with that. But after 6 months, then the money either has to be paid to you or given back to the investor. So that's the point where it's stick or twist. That's when the fees get charged once Crowdfunder releases the funds to your Stripe account. So it sits in Stripe's account under Crowdfunder's name, and when it gets paid over to your Stripe account, then that's when the fees get charged, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But up to that point, no fees are charged, but you just need to be mindful of what your timings are, and as I say, make sure your investors realize that they're not pledging to pay the money over to you if you get to the target. The money's already paid over and it's just passed to you if you hit your target. So you need people to be aware that if they give you £1,000, then they need to make sure they've got £1,000 at the point of pledging rather than at the point of the offer closing, which was the previous way it used to happen on Crowdfunder.
Brilliant, thank you, Dave. Yes, so in terms of fees, the total amount in terms of crowdfund fees you need to be aware of is 8%. And what that looks like is 5% to us at Crowdfunder. There's 1.66% which goes to Stripe, which Dave mentioned as the payment provider. And with VAT, that brings up the total to 8%. So that's certainly something that you should bear in mind when piecing together your target. So Dave, it would be great to hear a bit more about the different funds available that those who are embarking on a community shares might have access to.
Okay, so there are 2 funds which Crowdfunder can help you get hold of, which might help you develop your share offer. So if, let's say, you've got an idea and you think it's a winner, but you need to pay somebody like my good self to help you register a society or to develop the share offer document or the business plan, or maybe you need to do a site survey if you're trying to buy a building or get architects commission, etc., etc. There are lots of funds you need before you can get to the point of doing the share offer. So the Community Share Starter Fund is a really good way to help you get to that stage. It's funded by Power to Change, so it's only eligible for those organisations who will meet Power to Change's criteria, which essentially means you've got to be doing something local. There's been several share offers on Crowdfunder where they've been community share offers, but they've been the business has been working all over the country or even all over the world, and they're not eligible for this, unfortunately. But if your project is very much targeted at operating within a specific area and benefiting people in a specific area, then there's an opportunity to apply for this fund. You can get up to £6,000 matched to help you with your development costs. So if you raise £4,000, you can have £4,000 matched. If you raise £6,000, you can have £6,000 matched. If you raise £8,000, you can still have £6,000 matched. And those costs are paid over to you to spend on developing your share offer. So there is an expectation that having raised the funds through and matched it with the starter fund, that you then go on to do a share issue in the next 6 months. And then if you do your share offer and it's successful, one of the things you'll do is pay back that grant into the fund to enable another group coming up behind you to access the fund. So it's a rolling fund. So it enables people to prove the concept. So let's say you've got a village pub. It's always a village pub. Sorry for those of you not involved in village pubs. It's like a table list of philosophy. It's always what people use as an example when they get into these arguments. So let's say you've got a village pub. There's a few of you who think it could do with being saved. Some people are a bit skeptical. What do? One route is to try and fund the development of your share offer. You apply for grants here and then you apply for another grant, and that takes up a lot of time. And it also means that if you're good at writing grant applications, you never have to prove whether anybody in your community thinks it's a brilliant idea or a terrible idea. As long as you can lie convincingly to grant making foundations, you could get lots of support from them to develop your share offer, but it doesn't prove a thing. But if you wanted to go, well, let's see if we can raise £6,000 or maybe £4,000 or whatever it might be. And if that's the case, that people think our local pub should be saved and should be owned by us, the local community, then let's try and raise a bit of money to help make it happen. If you help make it happen, not only have you got the funds to develop the share issue, you've also proven the concept. You now know that people like it. They think it's a good idea. You've identified who your stronger supporters is. So maybe someone gives you £100 instead of £20. You know, you put a tick next to their name on your spreadsheet and say, must tap them up for some more. You might find out that there's certain parts of the community, when you look at the postcodes, maybe the idea appeals to some parts of the local area more than others, and that might tell you where you should target your share offer, or it might tell you where you need to do lots more work to get the share offer to where it needs to be. And conversely, if you can't raise £6,000 to develop a share offer, then it was probably a good idea to find out that now before you went on a harebrained scheme to raise £500,000 to buy the local pub. So it's a good way of testing the concept, showing people that there's support for it, and giving you the funds you need to get the share offer moving forward. So that's a really good addition to the sort of armory, we think, for community share offers. Another route is something called the Reach Fund, which isn't restricted to businesses working in a local area. It can be used for those enterprises, but it can also be used for any, for want of a better word, social sector enterprise, some organization which is trying to make the world a better place, and there's got a legal structure to try and help, to sort of lock that mission into what they're doing. So the Reach Fund can provide a grant of up to £15,000 to help you do lots of stuff to help move your share offer on. So if it's a particularly big share offer, you might need some involved legal work. In reality, the majority of the users of this particular fund tend to be existing businesses which might need to convert their legal structure to be a society to do a share issue. They might need to do quite complicated financial projections because they've got lots of different parts of their business, and they need to make it all knit together and produce numbers which will be helpful to the investors who are looking to attract to their share offer. It can also help cover things like getting a standard mark for community share offers, or maybe printing your offer document and getting it designed to look really good, or help with a video. It's a bit more fully featured, but it's also, by the same token, the people who fund the Reach Fund want to sort of know, why are you going down this route rather than going down some of the other routes? If it's a case of, well, we like the idea of having £10,000 more than we like the idea of having £6,000, then that's not as good a reason as we've got so much to do that the money we could get from, say, the Power to Change Fund just isn't enough to get us to the starting line to do our share offer. So that's something, if you're interested in that, then you can contact myself or Jason Nuttall at Crowdfunder, and we can work with you. We'll have a chat to you to identify what it is you need to do, what you need the money for, and then we can shepherd you through the application process. It's not Crowdfunder's money to give away, as it were. It needs to be funded via an organisation called Social Investment Business, but Crowdfunder's recommendation that a group are good for a grant is an absolutely critical part of that process. Though obviously, even if we said we thought it was good for a grant, it's not our gift to then say you've got a grant. But we would be hopeful that anybody we'd worked with and understood what they were needing the grant for the Reach Fund, that we would be able to convince Social Investment Business together that you were good for the funds.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave. And just on that point of contact, what's the best way to reach the Community Shares company to get some advice on that?
The best way to get in touch with me is to either visit our website, which is communityshares.co.uk. It's familiar. It's a lot like the Community Shares Units website, but they're .org.uk. So it's communityshares.co.uk, or alternatively, just email me at dave@communityshares.co.uk. Okay.
And similarly, to get in touch with the Crowdfunder, just please do email us at support@crowdfunder.co.uk. We've got a team of people here who can help with any requests, and certainly get that ball rolling for you, and to give you all of that kind of information you need to get started. Sadly, that is all the time we have at the moment to discuss Community Shares. I hope that's been interesting and informative for everyone. And we are looking forward to hearing from you. But most importantly, thank you very much to Dave and Rich for joining us today. It's been invaluable having you here, and I think we've all learned a lot today. So thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay. Well, we look forward to hearing from you. Take care. Thank you.